rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, here we go. Rebel Force Radio back with you, and we are knee-deep, maybe pit-deep, in the fallout of The Mandalorian and Grogu. Lots of fan discussion going on. Critics talking, industry experts, quote-unquote, talking about what this means for the future of Star Wars. We'll put our 2 cents in there. We're also going to be joined in the cantina in just a little bit with our good pal Kyle Newman. Kyle Newman, the director of Fanboys and noted author, filmmaker, and one of the most knowledgeable people we know about what makes Star Wars great. And we'll be talking to Kyle about his experience seeing The Mandalorian and Grogu and his thoughts about the film. Plus, in our after shows, that's the after show and the after show, we've been referencing here and there some of these great interview highlights from guys like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, Pedro Pascal. And so Jimmy Mack has collected some of the greatest hits of those, and we'll be reviewing those. Also, speaking of interview highlights, Damon Lindelof, he's been talking about the experience of getting fired. You're fired from the Rey New Jedi Order movie. Plus, your listener feedback, and so much more here on Rebel Force Radio. So great to be with you, back for another week of Talking the Wars. And by Rebel Force Radio, I mean me. My name is Jason. If you're new to the program and discovered us through our after shows, welcome. And I'm joined by, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. We're back for more Rebel Force Radio. Had a little bit of downtime following our After the After show last week because it just seemed like the last 2 months have been such an intense infusion of fresh Star Wars into my fandom with doing 2 shows a week, including Maul Shadow Lord After show throughout the month of April. Then we had May the 4th and the Mandalorian sneak peek IMAX preview, and then all the hype for The Mandalorian and Grogu leading up to opening week, then RFR Live in Cleveland, then After the After show. So I was just like, wow, have I actually reached Star Wars overload? And I took just a step back, just to take a breath, wipe the Burger King Whopper off my face and out of my beard. And I realized that I started missing Star Wars right away. I was like, damn, I need more. Wait a minute,
so how long were you away? I mean, gosh, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
It was a week. It was a week. Mm-hmm. It was a solid week where I would say I just stepped back. And then I came back with a fury on RFR Q&A this week. I was like, rolling into the Q&A, I'm like, God, I hope I still got it, you know? I hope I took a week off.
What, the passion, the love?
I hope I can just like the ability to vomit my Star Wars thoughts out over and over and over again and have a good time doing it. So, and I discovered, yes, indeed, the magic is still there. So here we are back for another week of the weekly RFR, and it's going to be a good one. Yeah, dealing with the fallout from The Mandalorian and Grogu, looking at some of these cool interview clips I've been able to collect. And then, of course, we're going to talk to Kyle. A Star Wars release cannot happen without us getting Kyle Newman's feedback on it. He's one of our best friends here on RFR. He's definitely family here. And me and Jason, believe it or not, we really have not had any solid, in-depth discussions with Kyle about The Mandalorian and Grogu. Quite honestly, I'm not really sure where he stands on it at all. That's how little we've spoken about the movie, which is kind of weird. FJ texted us when we were setting up the stage in Cleveland, and he goes, "What's the matter with you guys? A new Star Wars movie just came out, and you're being totally silent."
Well, we're a little busy right now, you know.
We're expecting 150 people in about an hour and a half.
I just pictured FJ at that moment, just dead silence, sitting in his house, just looking at his phone, waiting for that ping. What?
Yeah, cursing us.
Where are these guys? Yeah, of course, cursing us.
Yeah.
Where are these effing guys? This new effing Star Wars out. F them.
So we'll have to get caught up with FJ soon. He's been super busy, though. I mean, he's FJ DeSanto, for crying out loud. He just is not at our beck and call at all times. But, Kyle Newman, he's generous with his time, and we'll be joined by Kyle a little bit later. We have sort of this dynamic duo of RFR friends in Kyle and FJ. And it's been a while since we've had both of them on at the same time.
Right. People are starting to wonder, how come these two are never on at the same time?
Yeah.
And, I mean, there was a period of time where FJ was like, you know what, Kyle he just talks and talks. You know what? Just let Kyle go and have me on next week. And that's, of course, that's all said with love and affection. But, Kyle, you could wake that guy up out of a dead sleep and he could give you 2 hours on Star Wars like that. I mean, it's just, it's in his blood.
Yeah, but once we started doing it, it just became a regular thing. We're like, hey, that does feel kind of good to separate these two because Kyle does, Kyle is fearless when it comes to talking about Star Wars, and nothing is going to get in the way of him expressing himself when it comes to matters of the wars.
Right.
And FJ is polite, believe it or not, despite that forked tongue he has. And, no, forked tongue doesn't mean you swear. I think forked tongue means you lie. FJ DeSanto is one of the most honest and genuine people I've ever known in my life.
No, he's just profane, Jim. He's profane.
Yeah, right.
And
he's unfiltered. That's why we love FJ.
Unfiltered, yeah.
Yeah, and we can't set up any barriers in the shape of Kyle Newman in the way of FJ DeSanto when he's giving us his breakdowns of all things Star Wars. So we'll get caught up with FJ in the near future. But this week, it's all about Kyle Newman and all about these awesome interview clips that we have collected. But first, it's all about listener feedback.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jimmy. This is Nick in Atlanta. Just wanted to get y'all's thoughts on the future of The Mandalorian and really, I guess, the future of Disney Star Wars streaming in general. I love the movie. I think it was great. But if you look at the box office numbers, not that box office is most important, but it is important for sequels and whatnot. And right now, best case scenario, the movie looks to potentially break even. It'll probably make double its production budget, then you factor in marketing and everything else, and that's kind of where it's looking at right now. So with that said, it looks like a sequel movie in the theaters is probably off the table, and currently as it sits, Ahsoka Season 2 is really the only other thing that's forthcoming in the future. So just wanted to hear y'all's thoughts. What do y'all think is next? Do y'all think that we're going to continue to get Mandalorians series? Are we going to get any more spinoffs? Are they going to continue the Ahsoka show? Or is that Dave Filoni, culmination event movie still happening? We'd just love to hear y'all's thoughts on what the next few years look like for the Mandoverse. Thanks.
All right. Appreciate it. Nick, great question. And, I'll take a first stab at this. Here's what I think the film did. I think where it succeeded was it brought Star Wars back to theaters. Number one, mission accomplished. It also seems to have pleased a fairly large portion of the fan base in terms of the movie itself. The box office is modest. The critics reviews are mixed. That's not uncharacteristic of Star Wars on the critical side. And I think it does raise legitimate questions about whether the Disney Plus era storytelling can generate the kind of theatrical urgency that has been characteristic of Star Wars and has made it really the untouchable at the box office for almost 50 years, with just a couple of very, very rare exceptions. But for those that are going around calling this a bomb, this movie is not a bomb. It's not a breakout hit. But I think it is a revealing data point in terms of where Star Wars stands in 2026. And I will say that the thing that people are not talking about, at least I'm not hearing this, because they keep comparing it to 2019. Star Wars has not been in theaters since 2019. We had Solo, we had The Rise of Skywalker, but the movie business is frankly just not what it was in 2019. So I think that there's some perspective that is needed. Domestic box office, like a lot of different industries, haven't still recovered from the pandemic era. The industry switched almost overnight, it seemed like, to streaming options. And you've got the superhero genre has contracted. You've got only a handful of movies that reach anything close to $1 billion. And prior to 2020, $1 billion box office was fairly routine. So when people are talking about, well, the movie made less than The Rise of Skywalker, well, yeah, that's true, but almost everything makes less than The Rise of Skywalker. So I think if you're comparing Mando and Grogu to the prime of Star Wars box office, yeah, the numbers are probably on the disappointing side. But if you're going to compare it to the realities of 2026 and the movie marketplace today, I think it looks more like a moderate success than it does a failure. But what I've seen a number of analysts point out is that Star Wars has typically beat the market. No matter what the market is in the theater environment, Star Wars traditionally has beat it. And so this one doesn't seem to be doing that. But I don't necessarily think that was its mandate. I don't think Disney anticipated it to doing that. I don't think Lucasfilm anticipated it doing that. And I would say that I don't think that at this point, if it hits maybe $450-500 million, it's going to definitely be a success compared to Solo. But again, that's looking back at 2019 as well. I don't think it's going to have any major impact on the future of these characters. I think there's way too much riding on it in terms of ancillary marketing, merchandise, theme parks, all that. I think that they're safe, and I think we'll get further adventures of Mandalorian and Grogu, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was on the big screen.
I agree with you, but I do think the future for the Mandalorian and Grogu will be a return to streaming. I believe that. However, they want to frame the future of the Star Wars franchise, which I believe will be a future that will be more mired in the next trilogy and a focus on that as opposed to spin-off films. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a full commitment to the next sequel trilogy, which hopefully will be on screen sometime around like 2030 or something.
Oh, I hope before that, but who knows?
I don't know. There's been they would have to get people in front of cameras like by next summer, really, if it's going to be before that, or by this summer, really.
I bet cameras will roll on the Kinberg trilogy by the end of 2027. I think that will be the end. That will be the sort of the finale, the punctuation at the end of the 50th year that cameras will have started rolling on the next saga or chapter.
I like what you're thinking. And then that would hopefully target a 2029 launch for the next trilogy. But I see them committing to that. And not so much leaning on spin-off stories as theatrical events, but shifting that kind of stuff to the streaming, where it's been for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
So no more of these blank a Star Wars story situations. Just everything will be saga-oriented, chapter films, whatever you want to call it, and then just run those indefinitely. Trilogy after trilogy after trilogy. That's quite honestly what I thought the game plan would have been coming out of the gate after Disney purchased Lucasfilm, with standalone films in between. But streaming has changed the entire landscape. You don't need to be releasing standalones and spin-offs as theatrical films. They could be right at home on streaming, where they have been. So that's how I would anticipate their approach is going to be. I think Disney and Lucasfilm had tempered expectations for this. I do believe it was purely, more or less, a reassurance to shareholders and the fan base that Star Wars does still have a presence in theaters, and you'll see more of Star Wars in theaters in the years to come. But they just had to get something out there. I still don't quite understand the urgency. I think it might have been more prudent to continue The Mandalorian as the solid streaming hit it's been and focus on that 50th anniversary and re-release the original 77 film in IMAX and then kickstart the next era of Star Wars with Starfighter, which I believe is going to be a bridge film to take us into the Simon Kinberg trilogy, episodes 10, 11, and 12.
But essentially,
so I think there's a future for Mandalorian.
Okay, but essentially what you're saying is your prediction for Starfighter is another standalone, another island type film.
It is, but that'll act more as a bridge into what the next trilogy is going to be. The Rey Jedi Academy trilogy or whatever it's going to be called. So that's what I think is going to happen. And you'll have then a lot of familiar faces return for that particular trilogy. And let's see what they can do. It would be a real fresh start and some blue sky. And I think they're working hard on that stuff right now as we speak. I hope they are. But as far as the health of the Mandalorian and Grogu going into the future, come on. Baby Yoda's a flippin' cultural icon. He's not going anywhere.
He's a Macy's
and the Mandalorian.
Balloon. Come on.
And the Mandalorian's super popular. So I predict a return to streaming. And I do predict that it'll probably happen sooner than later.
Oh,
and those
that
are my
would be
predictions.
Great. Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be any more Mandalorian films.
I think some of this, Jim, was an exercise in proving to the fans and the shareholders that they can still get a Star Wars movie into theaters, because there was a lot of doubt whether they would ever get a movie back in theaters because of all the false starts and stops.
It was just a reassurance type of thing, a total safe bet, and a damn entertaining one at that, too. So wonderful eye candy, a fun time at the theaters, families going together, dads taking sons, moms taking daughters, dads taking daughters, moms taking sons. You get the idea.
Oh, we got it.
But
we got it.
Just leave the puppy at home.
Yeah. Thanks for the voicemail, Nick. Appreciate it very much. All right, I have no idea what this next thing is, but I do love whenever our listeners display their talents and helping to promote Rebel Force Radio. That's always good.
Right. And this comes from Cirque Michaels, loyal RFR listener, Cirque Michaels, who was inspired by the the big stage production of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh.
And he composed Rebel Force Superstar. Now, in no way, shape, or form are we saying that Rebel Force Radio would ever take the place of JC. But in this particular case, it is, because it's just a song parody. So don't get your
John Lennon get in trouble about that, didn't he? Didn't he say that the Beatles were bigger than Jesus?
Yeah, I think he just meant, like, I don't want to get into all that. That got John in so much trouble. It's just going to get me in more. So,
all right. Well,
let's hear the new song, a parody song from Cirque Michaels, Rebel Force Superstar.
Some recall the time when Mark Dawson explained how they built Salacious Crumb and how he got his name. Then there was that time when Jimmy cornered GL and George told him he's having fun as if he were in hell. If you miss the celebration, it will still be fine, 'cause y'all know they got a thing called No Fans Left Behind. Star Wars news, interviews, where they share questionnaire, Star Wars facts and reviews, sometimes a song, sometimes the truth. Rebel Force Radio, for Star Wars, it's where we go. Rebel Force Radio, you can listen when you're on the go. Rebel Force Radio. What they think about the latest release. Here comes Blake, he's got the take, that kid is a beast. Tyler Page, he's all the rage when screening the calls. With the phone lines opened up, they invite one and all. Everyone is welcome on the Patreon side, with VIPs and RPGs and fans left and right. Star Wars news and interviews, where they share questionnaire, Star Wars facts, Jimmy Mack, Jason Swank, set the pace. Rebel Force Radio, it's the Star Wars and pop culture show. Rebel Force Radio, with an archive that grows and grows. Rebel Force Radio.
That is my all-time favorite Broadway musical, Jesus Christ Superstar. So what a treat that is.
Amazing. I'll tell you what, man, there were a lot of RFR references flying around in there. You know, Puppet Lando, Tyler Page, Yoda questionnaire, everything got shout outs.
I'd love to see the lyrics. So, Sir, maybe you could send us the lyric sheet.
Yeah, maybe
I'd like to see the.
I'll dig around. I'll see if I can find it, and I'll post it.
Love it.
Yeah, good stuff.
Very good stuff. Okay, this conversation about Mandalorian and Grogu, and the idea that some people have that it should have been more complicated. It should have been deeper. That it was it was light. It was airy, and a lot of that has been circulating in my head. And I saw this clip of George Lucas on. I've seen it multiple times, but sometimes they take these things out and they put them on social media and it kind of hits you differently. And this was something I sent to our Jedi Council thread, and just to me, it was just a really good reminder. And this is George Lucas. This goes back to the making of Star Wars documentary, and see if this hits you all the way it hit me.
I think one of the key factors in the success is that it's a positive film. It has heroes and villains, and that it essentially is a fun movie to watch. It's been a long time since people have been able to go to the movies and see a sort of straightforward, wholesome, fun adventure.
And if that doesn't describe Jim, Mandalorian and Grogu, I don't know what does.
Yeah, those are very appropriate words. And we're a very educated and knowledgeable fan base, and some of us like to throw that weight around. Lord knows at Rebel Force Radio we certainly do from time to time. But everyone always says, well, George Lucas this and The problem with Disney Star Wars is they don't appreciate the George Lucas this, the George Lucas that. They fail to adhere to his formula. I'm saying that George just says very clearly, in very clear terminology right there, that it's just about having a good time at the movies and using the medium to bring that good time to the audience. So sometimes it doesn't have to be weighed down with all the lore and all the stuff, as much as we dig it. I certainly do. But that's George's formula, really, if you want to boil it all down. It's not samurai films. It's not Westerns. It's not pulp serials. It's all of that stuff mixed together. And it has to be done so in a specific way. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's check in on. There were so many references in that great song from Sir Michaels. It's crazy.
And some of them were about Patreon. So, Jim, bring everybody up to speed on the latest happenings over on Patreon.
Well, of course, at Patreon, that is the place where Rebel Force Radio listeners can go to support RFR, and in return, you get cool stuff like bonus podcasts you can't hear anywhere else, full show video. It's the only place you can get full show video. And, of course, ad-free early bird releases. It's great. People love it. You want to start your weekend early with Rebel Force Radio and not have to worry about being hit upside the head with commercial breaks? Well, you can get it ad-free at RFR on Patreon. Only $2 and you're in, and you're listening. And, of course, the higher the tier, the more stuff you get in return. This week, we have an exclusive podcast, RFR Q&A number 298. Wow, closing in on 300 rapidly. And it's a great show I did with RFR VIP David Hammond from Mando to Marcia. We get David's full review of The Mandalorian and Grogu. He shares his complete experience with us, what it was like for him and his family to go see the film and what he thinks of it. And that also led us into a conversation about J.W. Rinsler's awesome making of Star Wars books, which are just great, and you have to get it on the Kindle or on your iPad because it has all of those bonus audio clips and video clips. And we talk a little bit about some highlights from the book, most notably George twisting his car around a tree when he was growing up. And that kind of set him on the course to be a filmmaker, which led us to Star Wars actually happening. But we talk about that, and that leads us into a conversation about the late Marcia Lucas. And Jason and I will also pay tribute to Marcia Lucas coming up later on the show. But that's RFR Q&A number 298, from Mando to Marcia. You can only hear it at Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio, patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. It's super easy to use. You can even join for free if you want to poke around and see what it's all about, because Patreon, I know, is still a mystery to some people. So we invite you to visit us there, join for free, see what's going on, and then you can become an actual supporter of Rebel Force Radio and get all that cool stuff in return that I was just talking about. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
You love Star Wars.
Rebel Force Radio.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
Well, if you're like us here at Rebel Force Radio, you've had a ball following all of the press and the PR surrounding the release of Mandalorian and Grogu. It's great to see Filoni out there. It's great to see Jon Favreau, the cast members, and all of that. And as I've been saying in the previous episodes of RFR, I think they're being relatively transparent. And Jon Favreau especially. Occasionally he'll get a little look from Dave Filoni like, okay, let's slow down here, John. But I think they've been really gracious and forthcoming and more open than I think we've seen in the past from guys like J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, where everything was just so locked down and secret, and they were taking phones away from cast members and all that. I just feel that this could maybe be a new era in terms of being open and frank, I think, with, making the rounds. I do.
Okay. I thought it was kind of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
If it does launch a new era, that'll be pretty interesting. We'll see how that goes. you know, I mean, George Lucas was notoriously secretive.
Yes.
And
because he didn't like to talk to the press. I think some of that reputation is because he just was not comfortable talking to press.
Right. And so for Lucasfilm and the Disney company to adopt that from George's style, it might be a little bit of a misstep.
Right.
You know, maybe, I think, you're right. George was using that as a defense mechanism.
It's
it's a secret. Top secret. Top secret. Oh, geez, are they gone yet? Top secret. Yeah, so he just didn't want to deal with all that intense pressure and people staring at him, asking him questions. But I'll tell you what, guys like Pedro Pascal, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, they don't care. You just throw them right to the wolves, and they handle themselves pretty well in these interview situations. Jason, you asked me to pull this next clip specifically where they are comparing. This is Pedro Pascal. He launches the conversation with Entertainment Weekly as the Mandalorian and Grogu cast were debunking fan theories. You can watch this complete video on YouTube.
I highly recommend the whole video. There's a lot of really
fun.
good stuff in this one. Yeah,
it is fun. And there's some good chemistry between Pedro and Sigourney and Filoni and fans. And in this first clip, Pedro kicks off the conversation by comparing The Mandalorian and Grogu to 007. And Filoni and Favreau jump in and validate some of the things Pedro has to say.
I remember seeing the first Bond movie, and I hadn't seen any of the ones before. The first one I saw in the movie theater, and what a thrill ride that was.
Yes.
And, I, of course, later get to, acquire all the context on legacy that came before the first one I saw, but I still got on a ride, It makes me think of that.
Do you remember which one it was?
I don't want to say.
Okay, fair enough.
I was a Roger Moore generation, though, I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah, exactly. So you know which one
Spy
I'm
Loves
talking
Me,
about.
Moonraker. I love Moonraker. Love that. I had the collectible. But Bond is something we talk about a lot because structurally, following a hero like the Mandalorian is a similar archetype to James Bond, especially now working with Colonel Ward, working for the New Republic, that there is a larger cause, but you're also somebody who colors outside the lines. So Bond is something we actually talk about quite a bit.
Yeah, that's good to know. And it's somewhat obvious because we pointed out that Colonel Ward is sort of the M. You could even throw in a Zeb as like a Felix Leiter that shows up there and helps out at times. And
that's great.
And the fact it seemed as though what they were doing with Mando film was to build a formula so that they could tell future stories in that same format.
Right. And they can do so in future films or future seasons of the streaming series. It's a nice formula. It really works out well. I mean, it's worked out pretty darn well for the James Bond gang after all these years, and why not use that as sort of a template. Because Star Wars has been trying to squeeze itself into the Marvel template for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
And that's a square peg going into a round hole. I sense more synergy between a James Bond and a Mandalorian connection.
Yeah,
as far as the
gadgets
template goes. Yeah,
the pre-title sequence. That was definitely. I mean, Favreau says, we talked a lot about Bond. That was definitely inspired by Bond. So works great.
We just need to get Din Djarin a lady, and then, make the Bond connection complete.
It seemed like they were doing that, or we're going to do that in season 1, where he met that villager. I thought he was going to be like, Bruce Banner in The Incredible Hulk, and he would hook up, once in a while, and you'd be like, is he really going to settle down this time? Of course, he never did.
No, can't. Don't make me angry.
Bill Bixby.
You don't want to see me when I'm angry. Mr. McGee.
Yeah, it's not really relationship material.
Yeah, right. Not at all. Imagine the therapy sessions. Yeah, this one won't take his helmet off. This one rages and turns into a green monster when he gets mad. How do you have relationships with these people? So more to this Entertainment Weekly sit down with the cast and crew of The Mandalorian and Grogu as they're debunking these fan theories. They discuss the crawl, and that's something that has had fans talking. No crawl in The Mandalorian and Grogu. They discuss.
So typically the crawl, we've only seen the crawl in the Skywalker saga films.
Yeah.
Solo did not have a crawl.
Rogue One
did not
They'll
have a crawl.
a preface, like a little thing, like we did a blurb that explains some context. Ahsoka has a version of a crawl, but we put it in red and it's strictly vertical. It doesn't go back. So we find different ways to do it. To me, it's about capturing the serial vibe and like giving a little context, but the classic Star Wars crawl is something that we try to reserve only for like saga type films.
The crawl itself from the original film, I remember being a kid and seeing it with that perspective. It was analog, of course.
It was
on a roller. And just the diminishing point of the crawl, that whole first opening sequence, it feels like, anecdotally, I understand was added later. That wasn't even the way it was originally designed.
Originally.
Such an iconic opening. We save it for the saga.
I love when you see the video, folks, and we recommend you get the video, Sigourney, when Favreau's just nerding out about the crawl and how they did it. Sigourney looks over at Pedro. She's like, I don't know what they're talking about.
She still doesn't know what hit her.
No, she doesn't. But Jim, I mean, this is something that we've suspected. This was something that was sort of implicitly known. But to hear Filoni just come right out and say saga films and label it like that, that's just something we hadn't heard before.
Well, it officially puts to rest the idea that the Skywalker saga has come to an end with the rise of Skywalker. There will be an episode 10, and it's going to be the Simon Kinberg trilogy.
And it'll have a crawl.
And it's going to have the crawl. They're not going to be talking about only using it on saga films unless there are going to be more saga films. Yes, saga films are coming back. So will we see the crawl in front of Star Wars Starfighter? No.
Filoni
so get that out of your system right now.
Right.
Get your hand wringing and your angst out of the way now, because we're not going to have time to talk about that next year when that movie drops. But crawl is going to come back in saga films. Saga films are going to be coming back, and that's that.
Yeah.
So we take whatever we can get out of these interview tidbits. And here's another good one with Favreau just responding to the question on how Embo ended up in The Mandalorian and Grogu. He's talking to SFX, and they're on YouTube. I don't know what they do. SFX. But what's interesting about this is he also discusses the Anzellans and discusses a collaboration that went down regarding the Anzellans. So let's listen to Favreau talk about Embo and the Anzellans.
Well, we were developing the live action version of him and showing Dave versions. So as soon as we got to show Dave, because there's a special thing, like when you use it, even though it all belongs to Star Wars, if somebody came up with the character, you go, like when I was working with the Anzellans, I called up JJ.
Got you.
And JJ came
cool.
to
That's
the
really
set.
cool.
Yeah, because you want him to know that, I appreciate what you did. Do you mind? Are we handling this well? Are you happy?
Yeah.
And with Embo, same thing with Dave. Now, Dave's, of course, one of the directed second unit here, a puppet unit, and was a writer and a producer. But when you're dealing with those characters, you have to make sure everything's right.
Yeah.
And he was really impressed with what ILM came up with for the live action version of it. And then we have the movement, and we really did a lot of ambitious things with motion capture. Because if you notice, there's, not to spoil things too much, but there are fight sequences between live action characters and digital characters. And getting that interaction right is something that requires a lot of planning, a lot of performance, really good performance, and great artistry on behalf of the VFX team.
Favreau has just such a authenticity about him and just such an honesty. I really like him. He just doesn't. He loves what he does, but he doesn't give it a lot of that. Insider jargon bullshit. That
That's okay. We're all adults here.
That you often hear. So I just enjoy clips of him. And interesting that they brought JJ back with the Anzellan stuff.
Yeah.
Because John considers that a JJ creation to some degree.
Yeah. And Favreau revealed JJ was actually on set.
Yeah.
And consulting with the Anzellans. I had wondered why at the end of the film you see J.J. Abrams getting a special thanks.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He did.
Very cool.
Along with Guillermo del Toro, which I assume was some Hut consultation going on because Guillermo had developed a Hut movie for Lucasfilm back like circa 2017, 2018. David Goyer was a writer on that. And it didn't go anywhere. But in classic Lucasfilm tradition, they took it off the shelf and blew the dust off of it and said, hey, don't let good ideas just die on the vine. If you can't do something with it in the moment, maybe some of those good ideas can be repurposed in the future. George Lucas did that all the time. And so I'm glad to see Lucasfilm isn't throwing things away. That's important. That's important. So that's how Filoni was being consulted all the way. But again, I mean, he was part of the crew too. He's second unit director. He was puppet unit director, which is something I didn't know until Favreau just mentioned it. Puppet unit director. Do you think we could get him to shoot the Puppet Lando video? For MTV. Oh, wait, MTV isn't around anymore, is it? God, yeah, Puppet Lando outlasted MTV. Who knew? But there's still other outlets. There's that YouTube thing. I think that's beginning to catch on. Baby Yoda and
4 or 5 Anzellans, that's one thing. I don't know if he could handle Puppet Lando.
Puppet Lando and the entourage that Puppet Lando travels with, and all of the supplies they need. It's really messy. It's a slippery slope. I mean, me and Jason are totally in the red after Cleveland because of Puppet Lando and the damage him and his crew did backstage. Left a mess. Jason, I'm surprised you didn't really have to answer for that with your head on a platter, but...
that felt does leave like pills all over the place. It just pills like crazy. Yeah, so what the hell is all this stuff about? You don't want to know. You don't want to know. Just get the lint roller and be done with it. But that's... Yeah. But, so Embo considered a Dave Filoni creation, and John wanted to do right by him and right by that character, and I guess it was okay. I will say this: when I took the family to see the movie, and I have a 13-year-old now, a 17-year-old, and my wife, and the Baby Yoda sequence when he was taking care of Din Djarin, that got high marks across the board. My whole family loved that. They loved him taking center stage. They loved the stuff with the Anzellans. They were all, giggling whenever they came on. And so it really worked. It worked on them. And, in 13-year-old boys, they don't want to be seen laughing at anything. They're too cool for that stuff. But he was digging it.
Good.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talks about that scene where Baby Yoda is spying on that fisherman. And that frog eats Baby Yoda. Yeah. And the fisherman has to use a slingshot to get the frog to cough up Baby Yoda. Nobody's talking about that.
No one does really talk
I think
about
that could be a saga in itself right there.
Yeah, like saga. Jonah and the whale. Maybe he had a whole adventure inside that thing. But I did hear that frog is the same one that's outside Jabba's palace.
No, is it really? That's the same? That's like the frog dog?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
It's that nighttime sequence outside Jabba's palace, and he eats the little scurrying bug or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, Bubo, the frog dog.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if people commonly call it the frog dog, but that's something I've always called it.
Is that official? Jimmy Mack canon, but
it's yeah. I don't know. I don't think frog dog's a regular thing.
It sounds like something that the ILM guys would have called it.
Yeah, maybe I got it off of Maquette or something.
Yeah.
Hey, look, frog dog. Oh, I'm going to roll with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get that Maquette from Regal for $5,000.
All right, we have some interview highlights from Wired. Wired had the Mandalorian and Grogu cast answer the 50 most searched Star Wars Mandalorian questions. So one of them is, this one's interesting. Can Mando use the Force? And this is the same crew that was featured in the Entertainment Weekly segment. It looks like they shot it on the same set. So this is part of a special junket that only certain outlets were invited to. And in this case, Wired was there talking to Pedro, Sigourney, Favs, and Filoni. So the first question, can Mando use the Force? And I just find it revealing, the things that Filoni says. Filoni speaks with very firm terminology about aspects of the Force. And I think that's rare. I don't think he often does that. So let's hear this question and answer.
Can the Mandalorian use the Force?
The Mandalorian cannot use the Force.
He doesn't have the training.
He doesn't have the training.
I would say he's probably very...
Can you teach the Force to anyone?
Well, the Force is an energy field created by all living things. The Force is in everyone, Pedro.
This is true.
Different people have different levels of midichlorian, which allows them easier access at times, but they cannot learn the Force without training and discipline.
Yeah. He jumps in right away. And in Pedro's, credit, he looks to Filoni as, do I have this right? And he's looking at the right guy. And yeah, you're right. Dave is very certain about this. And this has been something that has been talked about a lot since the prequels. People thought that what George was saying with the midichlorians was that it's a select few people who have the ability to wield the Force. And in the sequels, one good thing, I believe, that came out of the sequels was reestablishing what I personally believed, and Jim, maybe you did too growing up, was that I could be Luke Skywalker. If I met a Yoda and he trained me, I too could tap into this. And Yoda's own words talk about it's an energy field created by all living things. Or that's Obi-Wan. It binds us. It binds the galaxy together. All of that. Yoda says, "Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter." All these things made me believe that it was something that was attainable. But I also knew that I had to swing from vines and do handstands and stuff in order to wield it. Filoni is definitely doubling down on this.
There was so much said about how Sabine suddenly became Force sensitive by the time the Ahsoka show rolled around. So you see Filoni putting on display what he believes the parameters of the Force can be and how far they can go. because Sabine didn't have any of that Force mojo. At least we didn't think so when we were watching Star Wars Rebels. All of a sudden, she's Force sensitive. What gives? Is it because she was displaying Force abilities? Is it because somebody finally took her midichlorian count? What led Ahsoka to suddenly start training Sabine? Those two barely talk to each other in the Star Wars Rebels series. I'm not kidding. You cannot find any sit-downs with Ahsoka and Sabine in that entire series. But yet, when we get reintroduced to the characters in the Ahsoka series, she's taken Sabine under her wing and trained her in the ways of the Force. Why? What happened? Can we ever be told that story?
There's all this history. There's then beef between the two of them. I mean, so much happened off screen.
And there's a falling
we didn't even
out.
know they hardly knew each other.
Jeez, how do you not make season 1 about that? I mean, what are you thinking? So naturally, I have some concerns about Dave Filoni's ability as a storyteller to actually put together a cohesive story that doesn't require you stopping and pausing the show every 5 minutes to look up something on Wookiee freaking pedia. That's not entertainment to me. That's homework. I'm studying now. Yeah. And I don't want that. I want the story to flow. And so when Dave talks about the Force in the way he does, he mentions the midichlorians. Mm-hmm. He does bring that right back in.
Right.
So that's honoring Lucas's approach 100%. And he's using that as a barometer.
Right. That's what it is.
The more you have, the more you can tap into it. But it also comes with your training and your ability to open up yourself to the Force. Because I think each individual Force-sensitive individual in Star Wars does it a different way. Because it seems like some have skills, others don't. Yes. It's not like you open up yourself to the Force and you can do everything that the Force allows a person to do. It seems like everyone has specialties, and it comes down to their personalities and their emotions and their feelings. Reach out with your feelings. That's how you tap into the Force, by reaching out with your feelings. Well, what the hell does that even mean? Can you reach out with a feeling? Well, yeah, sure, I could punch a guy in the jaw. Then people would know I'm feeling pretty upset if I did something like that. Or I could start crying, or people would know. That's like reaching out with your feelings. How do you apply that to connecting with the Force?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would when Obi-Wan tells Luke to reach out with his feelings on the Millennium Falcon, it was hard for me, and still is, to see that manifest on screen. Where I do see it manifest on screen is at the end of Empire Strikes Back, when Luke and Leia are communicating to each other through the Force. I think that's reaching out with feelings. I think Vader and Luke at the end of Empire Strikes Back, that's reaching out with feelings. So that I feel is sort of emblematic of that expression. Mm-hmm. But in the context of Luke fighting the training droid, I don't see a whole lot of reach out with your feelings in that moment.
But that's how you tap into the Force.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like the only way to do it is by embracing something that's impossible. This is impossible. That is why you fail. All right. I constantly have this argument going on with myself and the dialogue from the Star Wars original trilogy. It's always going on in my head constantly. And it's been on display a few times tonight on this very program. Here's a fun one with Favreau where he talks about, where does Grogu come from? Now, I think that this was meant to be like, where does he come from? Like planets, like clan or something like that. But I think Favreau approaches this more like how the idea kind of came about to have a baby Yoda. So so this is Favs, and I Filoni is standing there with him when he's talking, but I don't think Dave says anything. But just keep that in the back of your mind, that Filoni is staring him down as he's speaking.
Where did Grogu come from? First of all, the idea of some a character of that species, of that age, who, because Yoda was such a teacher, and to have one that's a student, because you always think of Yoda as old and wise, but to have a young one was just a compelling thing. And remember, as we're doing for television, it's like, what's a cool dynamic that has a lot of room to explore? Because you're going to tell stories over many, many chapters. Unlike a film where you want to lay the whole thing out at first, here we wanted to see what offered a certain amount of dramatic opportunity. And then the lone wolf and cub dynamic between those two characters felt like we could really do something special. Will Grogu ever speak? I heard something interesting saying, I look forward to Grogu's first word as it will immediately follow his second word.
Oh, very good.
Okay, a couple of things in there. I was just glad that Filoni didn't say, well, he's from the planet Favjon. Yeah, he's from the planet Favjon.
Oh, boy. Like Stu John, John Stewart.
Yeah. We all were witness to that when George is, I don't know. He gave Obi-Wan Kenobi's homeworld right there in front of all of us at Star Wars Celebration. He was being interviewed as part of the main event with Jon Stewart.
Yeah, we're like, wait a second. Is this serious? Is this going to stick?
Even Jon Stewart was like, well, don't make it up now.
Yeah, right.
Not in
sure
front of
enough,
me.
StarWars.com data bank immediately gets updated and stuff. It's like, oh my God, this is real. It's happening. It's happening. I can't believe George let that happen. It's just like when he named Admiral Mahdi Conan after Conan O'Brien.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He did that too.
He was on a real roll back then.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Johnny
Richard
Carson Parmentier, rest his soul, was pissed off about that.
Conan? They've named me Conan. This is impossible.
Effing mad.
I love that guy. He spoke with a British accent, but he was from like California or someplace.
Yeah. He spent a lot of time on the boards there in the West End, I'm sure.
He did.
Yeah.
So he kind of absorbed then, their dialect, their accent, if you will. So one more from Filoni, and it's a rather good one. Dave goes on for over 90 seconds, really not revealing much, but he gets pressed about the future of Star Wars while talking on one of these junkets to discussingfilm.com. So thanks for the tip, Paul V. from Phoenix. I checked it out. And just to hear what Dave had to say, how he's going to respond to this. The question was, at what sort of cadence are Star Wars films going to be released? Like, what's the release schedule? Is it going to be every year? Is it going to be twice a year? Is it going to be streaming? And what's the next story going to be? The guy was really shooting for the stars. And Filoni responds, this is Dave Filoni's thoughts. This is Dave Filoni tap dancing around the question about the future of Star Wars.
I've been with Lucasfilm a long time and, obviously came up with George. The fans, I think, to a large degree know me. They know the type of stories I like to tell. They know the way that I like to plan and have, ideas in mind that evolve and, obviously take advantage at every turn over the years. I've been able to grow the concept of how I create stories in Star Wars, not just from George, from Kathy, working with Jon. It's really allowed me to evolve. I think the most critical element was getting involved in live action, which Kathy really backed and brought me along into, and then teaming with Jon. That was just so crucial to really understand not just, the Star Wars galaxy, but producing these type of films. What does it take? What goes into it? The work involved. So, because they have to be, great when we put them out. There's just no, I'm a fan myself. I understand the pressure, and I look forward to it. But, all I can say is I love telling Star Wars stories in any medium, whether it's, what we did in this film, whether it's Maul, the streaming shows. And I've always been amazed at how infinite the possibilities seem to be, not just for the medium, but the types of stories we can tell. So I'm looking forward to, bringing a lot of these ideas and visions to the fans, to people to watch, and we'll see what happens. But everything is right now proceeding as I have foreseen it. So that's what I can tell you right now.
We used a dark side quote for his assessment of the future of Star Wars.
Well,
yeah.
When in Rome.
At least we didn't get always in motion, the future is.
That was always his favorite one.
Yeah.
Always in motion. Future is.
Yeah. Well, he didn't really give us much at all there, other than kind of his resume of the last 10 years since the Disney acquisition. And Jim, as he was talking, I remember years ago us hearing that Dave was on the chopping block potentially. Initially they didn't see value in him, and hopefully it was Kathleen Kennedy that, according to Dave, it was that had the faith and knew that he was valuable and special, and thankfully he's still around, and I still have a lot of confidence in Dave Filoni as sort of the macro visionary of the Star Wars franchise.
There was a lot of fear in the hallways of Lucasfilm when Disney axed Lucasfilm Animation.
Mm-hmm.
They just axed it. So it was a company on its own and had its own area there at Big Rock Ranch, and there were a lot of people employed who lost their jobs. But certain department heads were held on to, and Filoni was among a small group of people who stayed with the company after Lucasfilm Animation was closed down. You had Keith Kellogg, Joel Aaron, a few others, Athena Portillo. A few people stuck around, and they just kind of got absorbed by Lucasfilm. They, weren't part of their own company anymore. So it was a weird time. I just remember talking to people there, and they were all nervous. And then as the dust started to settle, there was a sigh of relief. And shortly after that, Clone Wars was canceled, and Star Wars Rebels was announced. It all seemed like it happened so fast. But Dave has rode all these waves, and now he's running the whole Megillah over there. So congrats to Dave. I just like the sense of enthusiasm I got from him in that last clip where he was talking about how he really gets off on telling Star Wars stories regardless of the medium. That's what you want to hear from the guy who's running Star Wars.
Yeah.
That he actually has a passion for it. And it's not just another rung on the ladder as he climbs up the corporate Hollywood,
or
train
or George
whatever.
just being like,
yeah, miserable by the whole process. Like, I have to tell another story. Yeah, George, you're known as a storyteller. Well, yeah, I know I'm known as that, but does that mean I actually have to do it? Yeah, George, let's get back to work here.
Rebel Force Radio.
It's like making a movie, only worse.
Your source for the Force.
Another filmmaker who tried to make a Star Wars film but couldn't is Damon Lindelof, screenwriter Damon Lindelof. After 2 years, Lindelof was hired, then fired by Lucasfilm as he attempted to write the script for the Rey standalone film that was supposed to be directed by Charmin Obaid-Chinoy. And we called it New Jedi Order. and Lindelof appeared on the Ringer podcast and talked about the type of story he was developing for Lucasfilm before he got fired. So this has been kind of one of those mysteries. Lindelof was the first writer on the project. Then it went to Stephen Knight.
Knight.
Damn it, I'm still doing that. Stephen Wright was a comedian back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
He used to appear on The Tonight Show.
Very dry.
Deadpan. Very deadpan, dry humor. Yeah. Boston guy, if I remember correctly. But he had nothing to do with the Charmin Obaid-Chinoy film. However, I think a collaboration there might be worth looking into. It was Stephen Knight from Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
And then he got ousted or walked away from the project. And then a guy named George Nolfi had been working on it. We assume for the last year and a half. We don't know if he's been kicked off that project. If anybody knows George, just ask him. Say, are you still writing that Star Wars movie or what? Because we haven't heard jack for a year and a half. And then they ask Daisy Ridley, and she's just like, oh, yes, it's going to be wonderful. And it's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just blowing smoke now, Rey. But I do think Rey is going to be back. She'll be back in the Simon Kinberg movie. We had talked about how it's a race for Rey.
Yep.
So Damon Lindelof was part of that race, and he had to drop out due to over dehydration. And so here's Damon Lindelof.
Just to talk about the bantha in the room, I was fired off of a Star Wars movie. So asking me, they asked me, what do you think a Star Wars movie should be? And I said, here's what it should be. And they said, great, you're hired. And then 2 years later, I was fired. And so I was wrong, at least through that prism. But what we were attempting to do, my partner, Justin Britt Gibson and Raina McClendon and I, what we were attempting to do was to have this conversation in the movie, which is to say there is a force of nostalgia and there is a force of revision, and they are at odds with one another. And let's do the Protestant Reformation inside Star Wars. And it didn't work.
Sounds amazing.
And so you kind of you have your cake and eat it too. But the conversation that the fandom is having without winking and looking at the audience, and that didn't feel necessarily that risky. And I may have been fired, not just because they seemed to like the premise. It was just the writing was really hard. It was slow, like the tone, getting it right, where it was inside of the canon, what its relationship was to episode 9. Is it starting a new trilogy? Is it like all of those things? They're so massive. They're so big. It's like to say this thing, it's the old sort of like tanker equation, which is you turn the wheel and it takes 5 minutes before it turns a little bit like this. And so I think that idea of we're looking for the center of Star Wars. And when episode 7 came out, we all knew what it was. It was Rey and it was Finn and it was Poe. And it was like all these, and then we were migrating back in Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie and all those guys. But we've got the sense that when this new trilogy was over, we were going to be launching with these new characters, and that was the center of Star Wars.
Well, that's what we all thought, and it's funny that all those character names are right on the tip of his tongue. Rey and Finn and Poe, and it's almost like he wrote a movie with those characters. Yeah, right. I believe he did. Yeah. I also thought it was interesting that it got sort of meta in a way, because Star Wars fandom is debating this issue of nostalgia and forward motion. And he was going to bring that theme into the film itself, that the characters were going to be dealing with the future of, I'm assuming, the Force and using the Force and all of that with what had come before. And he made it akin to the Protestant Reformation. So, some big heady topics for a Star Wars movie. Would it have worked? I don't know. It definitely sounds deep. I'll put it that way. Maybe too deep.
The argument of revision versus nostalgia. And you apply it into a Star Wars story. So it's Rey debating whether or not to follow the traditions of the Jedi or to reject them and start something new. So she's like at a crossroads. Similar to Luke, but Luke wasn't interested in starting something new. He just wanted to burn the house down. He had had enough.
I guess.
All the Jedi stuff. So that's what I think this guy's trying to say. Part of me thinks this listening to him talk feels like the second coming of Rian Johnson in certain ways, where it sounds like the goal of this movie was to get really meta and to you thought The Last Jedi subverted expectations. I mean, this thing.
Well, maybe we dodged a bullet here with Lindelof, but it's hard to say. He can't get too specific about it. I'm sure that there's kernels of what he wrote that'll appear in the film should it ever be made.
Well, that maybe, because that's what Stephen Knight was saying when he departed the project, that there may be kernels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, all right, well, that's Lindelof, R.I.P. Rey, new Jedi Order film, to be directed by Shamin Arbeid-Chinoy. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think that's totally on ice. Paging George Nolfi. Has anybody seen George? What are you up to, man?
Hey, you know what? I know somebody that they should call, and he's our guest in the cantina. Our good buddy, Kyle Newman. So why don't we go in there right now and talk to Kyle?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what he is.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master? For a drink.
Sorry about the mess. You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
All right, here he is, Kyle Newman, joining us once again here on Rebel Force Radio. It's always good to catch up with Kyle anytime, but especially when there's new Star Wars to talk about. And Kyle, we have been lighting up the Jedi Council thread, but I don't think I have a good sense, and I know for sure our listeners don't, of what your expectations were going into this movie, and were those expectations met?
What a big question. There's a lot to unpack with this movie. And sometimes you just want to look at it for what it is, as opposed to wrapping it up and bundling it with expectations, with giant timelines, with 49-year legacies, and judging it against all those different standards. You immediately are forced to compare it to every other Star Wars movie that's ever come out. Everyone's got to update their ranking lists. It's not like you can just go to a movie and enjoy it. So there's a lot more when it happens to have a Star Wars name in front of it. So with this movie, look, I think I texted you guys right after. I said, it's really fun, but it's also inconsequential. They didn't take a great effort to tether this movie to a larger unfolding storyline and say, maybe the way a Marvel thing would sometimes do, where it's like, hey, we're part of this bigger picture and this is a stepping stone towards this end goal. I didn't feel like there was a communicated end goal for this time period. It wasn't like it was climaxing towards something else we knew was coming a phase later. It was just a culmination of 3 seasons of a show, and here's a 4th season. I didn't feel it was strung together as much as some people. I think here's what I went with: a large group of people, and many of them went in with their opinion of the movie before it started. And all of them emerged with the exact same opinion that they wanted to place upon this movie. Half of them went in and said, oh, I heard it's terrible. It's going to be terrible. They laughed and said, it was terrible. And the other half were like, it's going to be fun. I heard it's fun. They went out and go, it was fun. And so I think these movies have been reduced to being what we need them to be to kind of support our Star Wars stance. We got to put our stake in the ground and go, well, I'm a and I don't like those sequel movies, and everything's got to be about how you feel about that. And I'm a prequel hater and I don't like those prequel movies. And you can't look at them for the nuance. It's kind of like how politically charged everything is,
Yeah.
I personally went in, I got to see a Star Wars movie with my 3 boys. It was probably the first time they all got to see a new Star Wars movie in the theater. Now, I've experienced Star Wars movies with them and on the big screen too. But it was the first time it was like an opening of a new movie 7 years later. Etienne's 5, so he got to sit right next to me and watch this movie. And they all loved it. They all had fun. It wasn't life-changing, but they all had fun. And that was a great experience. So as a dad saying, I'm going to go watch Star Wars and sit, make it generational and pass this along to my kids and get some popcorn and do what I did and go through this ritual. That was a beautiful thing, and I loved it for that.
And there's a lot of dad vibes in the movie, and so it's fun to go with the kids. I went with my family after we did the big event in Cleveland. But something you said is really interesting. You said that it, paraphrasing here, but it basically didn't change people's minds. The movie did not sway people that went into it thinking that it was going to be A or B. It confirmed in your test case with your crowd that you went out, it confirmed what they went in thinking it was going to be.
It wasn't like the movie itself. The quality of the movie itself was never going to change these people. I think that's where we're at in fandom.
Nothing they do is going to change it.
Not a lot of energy on it, and I left with not a lot of energy on it. I said, I'm going to go have fun. I love Favreau stuff. I love Filoni stuff. Mando's a great character. The first 2 seasons did not let me down. The 3rd season stabbed me in the back. I was like, it's probably going to be pretty solid, well told. I think there's going to be a lot of Easter eggy stuff. It's fun. From the trailers and stuff I saw, I said I like it. I don't necessarily love the way it was marketed. It probably would have been a great Father's Day movie. Who's your daddy? All these kind of things like Mando, daddy, Jabba and his son. Like they should have done a dad themed thing and made this like an early June.
They still have a chance. They could do that. We've seen movies kind of reinvent or sort of pivot on the marketing campaign. I think a Father's Day spin is really, really smart. Hopefully they have plans to do that. That's coming up in the next couple of weeks. And it needs a good couple of weeks if it's going to beat Solo. But we don't want to make this all about the box office. But I do want you to, for a minute, I do want you to put your industry hat on because there's a lot of questions about, and we just heard one earlier on the show from a listener. There's a lot of questions about what does this mean for the future, and does the box office determine whether or not this is the end for Mando and Grogu?
So let me get my industry hat.
Oh, wow. He actually has
now
one.
that I got my industry hat on.
It's a popcorn bucket.
That was not the dream.
Appropriately.
Popcorn bucket, yeah, or KFC bucket, like Buckethead. It was not the dream opening weekend. So let's just be honest. So they were trying to swing for something more. They also look at it as we could have spent how many hundreds of million on a season of a show, which isn't going to move the needle on subscribers, or we can put it in the theater and recoup something. Because if you're going to make a season 4, how many hundreds of millions is that? And how do you make your money back? You're not going to get $400 million of subscribers.
Absolutely.
$300 million. What's it cost to make a season of Mando? I don't know. But, maybe less. Maybe they're looking at 25 an episode. I don't know. But you're never going to make that money back just on a subscriber boom. It's like the Willow effect. Willow didn't move the needle $200 million. And they're like, wait a second, hold on. Why are we making shows that don't give us 200 million of subscribers? And it's not after 2 months, no one's going to, I got to get my Disney Plus to get me some Willow because it's already old.
Yeah.
So the movie was a way to say, we're going to spend this money anyway. Let's make some money. So in a way, they made more money than they probably would have done if they'd done a series. Okay. Box office people are going to go savage it and say, oh, it's lost to Backrooms in weekend 2. You know what? It was a satisfying movie. It probably created young fans. There's a lot of things that are intangible. So you did good connective tissue. You reintroduced yourself to the fan base at a younger entry point. There's a lot of smart things about it. The movie itself, enjoyable. It plays. It's not offensive in any way. It's not offensively bad. It's not like, oh my God, you got to go see it this goddamn weekend, stranger. Someone that's not into Star Wars is probably not going to get moved to go do that. So it didn't move the needle negatively or positively. It was an odd movie after a 7-year gap to be the first movie back. If you're going to say we've been gone for 7 years, Star Wars is back, it should have probably been Starfighter tethered with, you just wait a year. You do the 50th anniversary, Star Wars is back, and with it, we've got Starfighter, then we've got Episode 10, and we've got a Mando movie. And you do that on the coattails of the aplomb of a 50th anniversary. But they set these things in motion. This is not a Dave Filoni thing. This is a Kathy and beyond. They all have to answer to people in there. The whole company, okay? It's not a Dave Filoni thing. Dave's a genius. There are people within Disney that aren't Star Wars fans that just look at this as a thing that makes money. And how much money can it make? How much do we spend? How much will it generate? What is our loss threshold? And that's it. You know, so you have smart people trying to make cool Star Wars, and they're going to have to constantly go up against these threshold guardians, you know, that look at it on a pure monetary. And maybe they are Star Wars fans, but doesn't mean they guaranteed are. And that's Disney, okay? They are the benefactor
Kyle,
of Star Wars. And
you painted a picture of Star Wars just waiting one more year to get to that 50th anniversary point where it could have been brought back with a big celebration. We know that the original film, Star Wars 77, A New Hope, is going to be back in theaters and on IMAX screens and everything in its original form. And you also have Starfighter coming out next year. So why the urgency? Why did they have to get a Star Wars film in theaters in 2026?
Because they've taken too long to get a Star Wars film in theaters for 7 years.
Yeah, but what's one more year at this point?
It's only one season more.
Development chaos on too many things. And I don't know all the behind the scenes of it, but the way it looks like to me is you got a valuable property, and you need to feed the fans. The fans need sustenance.
Or do the stockholders need cash? Is
There's
that
other
more
ways
the
for
case?
Disney to make money through theme parks and other IPs, right? So, but you do want to keep all your. It's like pruning a garden. You want to keep it all healthy. Okay, Star Wars had a lot of stuff, a lot of TV entries, a lot of animation sub-series. I love what Matt Micknovitz and those guys do on the small screen. Maul was incredible. Visions, stuff like that's hit or miss for me. The Tales stuff is a little hit or miss for me. It felt like, okay, we need something, you know? The live action shows, Acolyte did not leave a good taste in my mouth. I don't think really in many people's mouths. And look at Solo. I mean, look at Solo. Look, if you waited a year and then you put more stuff out, the context changes, the psychology changes of how we feel about Star Wars, retrospectives, USA Today, everybody's writing articles about Star Wars is back. And everyone's like, oh, Star Wars. And then there's all these Star Wars tie-ins. Then you go into Mando or whatever movie with a little bit of a different positivity. Right now it has all this pressure on it because it's a gap. And you don't have any other goodwill around it. So Solo suffered largely because people were like, you know what? Last Jedi sucks. And I'm not going to I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to the theater and get burned. Why did Skeleton Crew not do as well? Because Acolyte was a finger cinger. You know, you touch it, you're like, I got burned. Why did I want to, you know what I mean? So then people were like, I can't do Skeleton Crew. I just watched 4 episodes of Acolyte. I can't. I can't. And you're like, no, there's still good stuff, blah, blah, blah. I watch it all. I get something out of it all. But I see the average person does not like these things. It's not like Kyle doesn't like them. The average person, if you go online, does not like The Last Jedi, and they don't like Acolyte. Okay?
You know, the thing that's really, I was thinking about this, guys, the thing that's kind of ironic about this film and its release and its reception is that it does not suffer from a lot of the headliney, clickbait, issues that a lot of the critics of Star Wars and Disney have been leveling. You didn't hear that the film's woke. You didn't hear that it was political, that it had any agendas. And I'm kind of curious, why aren't the big critics of that, of which I've been part of that? Don't get me wrong. I agree with some of those assessments. But why aren't those critics coming out and saying, you know what? This movie did what we've been asking. It is a straight up story. It's good guy versus bad guy. There's no agendas being pushed. I don't feel like it's getting that credit that it deserves.
It was squeaky clean, good, clean storytelling. You know what I mean? It was fun. It wasn't pushing any boundaries. It wasn't reinventing technology like the old movies used to do. It was, let's go take what we've done successfully with Mando and make a larger, bigger version of it. Certain sequences felt like they could have been pulled from the show, and other ones felt like they were much bigger. I didn't feel like it was just I felt like they said, we could take the crux of these things. You know, I feel like, look, if I was probably writing a Mando movie from scratch, I probably wouldn't, the first thing I probably didn't put down is Rada the Hutt. I think that was probably something like, well, Rada's going to be in season 4, so let's work him into this. It didn't feel like that's the cinematic entry point for a Mando movie. That felt like that was probably, ingratiated in because it was existing. But then they took set pieces and made them much bigger, like the battle with Rada and Mando in the ring versus all the degenerate creatures was not something that probably would have been in this episode of Mando. That was much bigger. The ATE sequence was definitely not like a Mando sequence. These are things that are cinematic and huge, and they did a really great job with them. So it wasn't just like purely 4 episodes stitched together, but I think the DNA of it was like, look, the next thing we're going to explore involves Rada, and they probably committed to some stuff, and then they worked it in, and there was some nice thematic stuff. You've got a father-son Mando Grogu story, and then you've got a Jabba and Rada story, and your themes of legacy and what you pass on to your children. Is it genetic? Is it in lesson? Is it in how you present yourself and the role model? And I think that's what they were exploring in it. One thing I will say, and I love, the music of Mando, but the 2 things I probably wish would have been, but the music didn't hit. Yoda's in the swamp and you feel something. Princess Leia's theme, like I feel something with those themes in a that to me is Star Wars, is when the music wears its heart on its sleeve, and it's a little more obvious. It's sweeping, it swells. You feel it like a Dr. Zhivago. Like it has it's
oomph, epic,
and it doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't care to be subtle and small. It wants to just inject this feeling into your heart when Luke looks at the twin sons. When when Grogu's sitting on that gnarled branch in the swamp and you hear this thing, I didn't feel a lot. And I do think, shying away from, and I got into an argument with someone over the weekend, not an argument, but a debate. And I said, it should have had a crawl. And like, no, it's its own thing. And I was like, you needed a crawl. And here's why. Star Wars is a thing. It's episodic, and it's pulp, and it's culled from inspired by these old serials. I feel something's missing when a Star Wars movie doesn't open bombastically and launch me into a crawl and tell me where I'm at. They still had information. It wasn't like it didn't need precursory information.
Yeah, it was pretty
needed
limp.
a setup.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where we were. If you didn't put that, no one would know where you were in time. Where am I in this timeline? Are we 5 years, 6 years? What? You needed something. Imperial Remnant, blah, blah, blah. Do it in a crawl and start the movie with adrenaline and get the kids jumping in their seats and spilling popcorn and getting excited. Like, whoa, we're in a Star Wars movie. What is this aversion to having fun? What is it? What does it diminish if you put a crawl? I know they said the crawl is only reserved for
chapter
Roman
films.
numerals.
Yeah.
What does that
Saga
mean?
films.
All a Star Wars film should feel like a chapter in a bigger story. They all should have a crawl. They should never be called a something story. They should all open with a crawl. Like Rogue One was great, and it had text at the front. It probably would have been fun with a crawl. Giacchino's score, amazing. Like it would have carried right in. He picked the spirit of it. Ludwig Göransson's music is great. It works well on TV. It didn't feel as cinematically big, and I think that maybe took the glossing on this movie down a notch and made it feel more television because it didn't commit to the big screen the way Star Wars should be on a big screen, which is with a little bit more oomph and heart in the music. Good themes, but it didn't have that impact. And I thought the crawl
about
context.
How about certain scenes or sequences that really stand out to you as Kyle Newman approved? What were your favorite parts of the movie?
There was nothing I did. Like I said, I loved that opening with the AT-ATs. I thought that was great. A lot of like, oneers through ships, oneers through space. I thought, they did a really good job trying to keep the energy and movement going. I enjoyed all that. I enjoyed the Dejeric monster battle. The chase was good. It was fine through the streets. A lot of his combat stuff was cool. I felt like Sigourney Weaver's maybe a little underused. I don't think the guy from The Bear. It could have been anybody cast as Rada the Hutt. It was under so much manipulation and distortion. It could have been Seth Rogen. It could have been anyone. You know what I mean? Like I felt like that was. It was just an interesting thing. And he gets like second billing or something, I think, and he probably didn't even realize it. And so it's one of those things where I almost enjoyed everything. I didn't have like major pushback to it. I wasn't like, oh, what is this scene? It was nothing like that. I just felt
What about the things that we've never seen before? Things like, that are well ingrained in Star Wars, but they're being presented in a different context, like the Amanamen and the Hutts fighting. 3 Hutts brawling each other at the same time. I mean, we were just seeing things that have never been seen before with characters that we're familiar with. Yeah.
We should. The Amanaman, look, very minor character. That's probably one of my top 3 figures from the original line. That's like my favorite power. When I was a kid, I didn't have him. So I only got Amanaman when I was in college in New York City, and I saw him on a shelf at a store, like that sold vintage collectibles and stuff. And I was like, I can finally get this figure. And I saved up and I got this thing. I love that character. So it was cool to see more of them. I love the sea monster. That was a cool sequence. The little lake monster, whatever that was. The Hutt wrestling thing, I think I was, at the point of the movie, I was just in it for what it was. I was like, this is a little weird, but I was in it. I was like, okay. Embo was a little like too CGI for me. I felt like he was a little too elongated. He felt too and I feel like they took the literal animation style and then translated it. And I think the animation style, we've seen the way it distorts people. Like a Dooku looks different in animation than he does in real life. I think they took the literal Embo and just brought him to life. Cad Bane looks different in live action than he did.
Right.
And let's never talk about the Grand Inquisitor, which they just absolutely destroyed the way they turned him into live action.
That was cosplay. That was definitely cosplay. And I'm with you on the Embo as I look back on this and saw it for a second time, that he just didn't strike any kind of real fear or menace. He just didn't have much of a presence. So I thought he was, that was, I think looking back on it, my biggest problem with the movie is that it just didn't have any satisfying villains outside of the Hutts. And maybe that's by design, that the Hutts really are, and the plot definitely leads you to the Hutts were the puppet masters. They were the villains of this thing, and they're a known quantity. But I don't know. I'm used to them being sort of background characters.
I want it to be known that I have more positive feelings about Embo in this movie. I did think he was menacing. I thought he was consistent with the way he was portrayed in the Clone Wars. So I just want the Embo fans out there to know that I got your back. I got your back. It is 2-on-1 though. So, I mean, I'm trying the best I can. I might have to bring like a can of pepper spray to this fight, but I'm fighting for you, Embo fans. I'm out there. How do you on the front lines of
dislike him? I just thought maybe there was a better way to visualize that character in live action. It could have been a little more menacing, but I didn't dislike it. It wasn't like they did a poor job of it. Nothing. I wasn't offended by anything within this movie.
But it doesn't sound like. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're saying you weren't really offended by anything, but it doesn't sound as though anything really like lit your fire. I mean, either. It was just sort of, what I'm getting from you, Kyle, is pretty flat.
Did you leave that movie and go, oh my God, I can't wait for season 4?
I did leave the movie saying, I hope there's a season 4, because I think they need to do the character justice. But
like a hook. It almost felt like a chapter was closed. Maybe there'll be more, maybe there won't. It didn't feel like, look, I mean, I'm always thinking of bigger ways to gamify and activate things. But if there would have been a scene where they come back to the base and, there's a Luke, Han, and Leia hologram call, and there's more. You're talking about a bigger picture, and there's the New Republic's got some other issues, and you feel like it's unfolding into a bigger universe that he's going to play in, even if they're very tertiary. Or early on, there's a mention of something like why they need to do this is more than you work for me and I'm doing this for the Hutts. It ties to a reason we understand of galactic importance more than just shut up and do the job. There's opportunities to anchor this in a bigger, in a bigger universe that fans kind of ask for, like where is Thrawn or what's happening here? I don't know. Just
one scene or one reference could have turned this whole picture around in the eyes of
land there, you're probably looking at 100 more million box office, just for people talking, you got to go see this thing,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's if you're.
But don't you fear that becoming a gimmick though? That they'll just start dropping that into Star Wars all the time, and it's like a gimmicky thing.
They were in Rise of Skywalker. You had younger versions of them. You had Leia and Rogue One. You've had young Han Solo movies, so it's not like they're never been done before. These characters, we've seen them visualized in different points of their life. It's already been in Mando, so it's not like we're bastardizing them for the sake of Mando. If Luke's in Mando, then that means Leia's in the universe, right? And we've already got a CGI Leia that was in Rogue One. So it's like, we got baby Leia in another show. We got little Luke in another show. It's like, they're not like they're completely off limits to explore them at other periods.
I feel like they were given orders to make this film have absolutely little to no connection to anything else, past or future, because of a lot of the complaints, some that we've voiced here on Rebel Force Radio about the homework that's involved in, getting new Star Wars and how to get the more casual fans. But the problem is, it's like it goes to extremes. You go from Ahsoka season 1, where you can't really even follow the story if you haven't watched Rebels and parts of Clone Wars, to this film where there's absolutely no reference to the larger picture. It's like, can we find a happy medium here?
Yes. Anytime you're making something that's based on underlying property that's nearly 50 years old, there is a barrier of entry, unless you're completely rebooting it. And none of this is reboot. This is stuff that has to sit in the timeline with stuff that's nearly 50 years old. This is not a brand new character you're throwing on the screen for the first time. This is a guy who had 3 seasons of a show. Starfighter is a new entry point. That's where they should take that mandate and say, look, we're in new territory 5 years after. All we got to tell people is it's 5 years after, blank slate, go fly away. That's where you don't tether things. But if you're sticking something after one trilogy, in between another trilogy, where there's been like 3 or 4 animated series, and there's an Ahsoka show, and there's already a TV show, you kind of have to address the elephant in the room, which is the timeline, So that if that was a mandate that was passed down, that was an ill-advised one.
I can't help but think there's a method behind the madness. And the reason they wanted the Mandalorian and Grogu film to be able to appeal to people who may not have seen the Disney Plus series is because they want those people to see the Disney Plus series. So they figured the theatrical release might be a good way to hook and bait them into a Disney Plus subscription, because if they like the Mandalorian and Grogu film, then that will pique their curiosity, so they go back and watch the first 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, maybe sneak a Boba Fett in there or something for your Mando season 2.5. So that just, to me, indicates driving subscriptions to the streaming service still remains the top priority for the Disney company, even though they say they're pivoting back to theatrical. They can't help it. They are streaming addicts, these guys. It's a crazy thing. So
streaming is it's a viable and important facet of the spectrum of stuff that somebody's going to make money. So it's not like for a little bit, it was streaming was everything for everyone. Okay. And they turned their back on it. I think now they have to go rewind a little bit and go, all right, theatrical is going to be important. Streaming is going to be important. Theme park experience is going to be important. How toyetic is it? How are we going to activate it in games and other things? What is the IP licensing like? They have to check certain boxes before they're going to get certain amounts of money. And that is a factor. But I don't think it's streaming is the dominant reason why they made this theatrical to like backdoor get subscribers. But you're right. People are going to say, oh, there's a movie. I don't want to miss this big Star Wars movie. And I haven't seen it yet. I should sign up. But I don't think that's the only reason they made it. I think they saw that's
not the only reason, but a top priority. The other reason it was made is because Lucasfilm hasn't been able to get a Star Wars film in the theaters for the past 7 years. And everybody has been keeping track of that. So I think to save face with the shareholders, that's why they fast-tracked The Mandalorian and Grogu into a major motion picture, because they really wanted to have something else.
It's a safer maneuver. And like I said, then the execution of it felt relatively safe as well. And I think in time, people will look at it for exactly what it is, which is a fun entry. And it's probably not going to be anyone's top favorite Star Wars movie ever. And it's definitely not down there in the lower echelons, in my opinion, either. So I think time will kind of settle the debate on this movie, and it'll be stripped away. And once there's more Star Wars movies that come after it, I think people will then retroactively, look at this a little more favorably. There's a lot of negative stuff online and unfairly negative, which I think will, kind of subside as time goes on the next couple of years, when we do see Star Wars reemerging in a big way.
This may become a cult favorite, really. I've heard people talking that way. If you look at the Solo film, we deride it from time to time, but it does have a cult following. You see people with the hashtag make Solo 2 happen and all of that stuff. They're still out there demanding to see the further adventures of Kira. But
and you know what? And you're looking at it like Mando is its own little world. And if you love Mando, this is it doesn't let you down. And I thought it was a great entry. Also, in the big picture, the last thing to really make a mark, mainstream Star Wars, was Andor. And it's a very different texture, that show. It has a different aesthetic. It has a different philosophy. And it has a different pace. And then you're putting this is the next big thing out there in the world. So they're not really similar, No. And there's a lot of
Andor was sort of premium television. Like it was high end premium series TV. And I think there's room for that in Star Wars if we're going to go with this sort of diverse styles for telling these stories within this universe. And I don't think that they're going to ever give up on that. I think that they have plans clearly for the future of animation, the future of theatrical, and I still think they're talking about television, and I think there will be room for another premium television experience that will be more cerebral and that sort of thing. But Kyle, but we want to talk real quick too about the Forest Moon Festival and your experience there last week. But final word on this for now. What does this do or not do for the future of the franchise? Or does it just not do anything? Is it relatively inconsequential to the next film, the next series, what they're talking about in the halls at Lucasfilm or Disney? Does this have any impact on the future at all?
Well, I think for the people at Disney, the people at Lucasfilm, I'm sure there's lessons to unpack. I don't know what those specifically are, because they're going to know what their own challenges are. But I think if you don't learn from something, look, this didn't go out and open at 300 million. It's not going to make multi-billion. So they're going to go, okay, is that okay? Do we need to make sure we always swing for the fences? If we are going to do something where we know it's not, maybe we cap our budgets at X, versus Y. So they should calibrate and learn from this experience. I don't think they're going to say no more Star Wars. It's not like we're going to turn off the faucet on development or something. It's just going to probably inform some of the things they do. Maybe we don't get a second Mando movie. Maybe he goes back to the small screen, or maybe they do. Maybe they go, let's do another one, but let's cap the budgeted here and let's put it out after this and this. And we know, and when we do it, we'll tie it to something else in that time period. And so it's a little more synergy than it just dangling by itself. So there's got to be some lessons to learn from it. Probably in marketing, probably like doing like an Anheuser-Busch Clydesdale ad wasn't maybe the best thing. They probably should have bought an extra 30 seconds and done a minute of the movie, and I would have blown people away.
Yeah.
Instead of people saying, what's the connection here? The average person doesn't remember that commercial. So there were some mystifying things in marketing. So I think there's probably lessons across the board. And unless your movie makes $2 billion, every film, every studio needs to learn some lessons about what they make and how they market it. The big picture on Star Wars, though, I don't think anyone's going to go, oh God, no more no more bounty hunters with little green friends. You know, he's a fun character. People love him. So
he's the most popular Star Wars character. Yeah, in decades. Grogu. He's not going anywhere.
Super lovable, super merchandisable. It's not like they picked the wrong person to do. And for me, it was more like I said, timing. You wait 10 more months and suddenly March, you've got the 50th anniversary and this groundswell of goodwill. And you put something out then, it totally changes the complexion of it.
All right, let's shift gears here real quick and let's get a recap of the Incredible Force Moon Festival. Mac and I weren't able to be there this year. We had commitments elsewhere, but you were there, and yeah, we missed you as well. So how did it go?
It was wonderful. We did a lot of similar things, a lot of explorations. Went to Cheatham Woods, went to the filming locations of Return of the Jedi. This year, Matt Michnovitz came, who's the showrunner of Maul, and he's done Rebels and Clone Wars and Bad Batch and the Tales and the EA games, and he's a true Star Wars fan and steward, and he had a blast. We did some panels, we did some exploring, a lot of the similar stuff. Some things were different this year. We got to do this the night market, which wasn't going on last year. That was fun. We did see the Grateful Dead band, Jimmy. I thought of you.
The Tennessee Jedi.
They were performing at the zoo, not the Arcata Park.
Oh, that's perfect for those guys. Yeah.
So it was a nighttime jam. It was wonderful. It was good to see familiar faces, like Annabelle and
Kevin and Tracy were there. Yeah.
Tracy, of course, the super Kevin and Tracy, they were so wonderful. And I brought my son Leo this year instead of James Knight. And so he got to bond with Kevin. He was like, Kevin, over here. Everybody was having a lot of fun. It was like a great adventure. And next year, I think it'll be even bigger because next year, it's coming out. It's the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. You've got Starfighter that same weekend, I think. So it's going to be a big Forest Moon Festival. So we met a lot of Rebel Force Radio fans that had heard about Forest Moon Festival on the show and made the trek. So from Southern California.
Great.
Some from Milwaukee, some from Utah.
Oh, yeah.
There's people from
That's awesome. Yeah, we love hearing that. Yeah,
well, we love those guys, and we're really behind that event, as our audience knows. They hear us talking about it all the time. The memories were just amazing from that event, and being out there is so incredible. You really feel in touch with your inner Ewok, and so maybe the future will bring Rebel Force Radio and Kyle Newman back to the Force Moon Festival. TBD.
TBD. I was still talking about my third Ewoks movie to complete the trilogy.
Oh yeah,
yes,
that's still bubbling.
Working Caravan of Carnage, Hey,
well, you know what? I fear that Disney and Lucasfilm will have an overreaction to the fact that The Mandalorian and Grogu were beat by a couple of independent horror films on its second week in release. So they're going to overreact and start creating low-budget Star Wars horror films. So maybe we can figure out a way to make this Ewok film, mix in a little Five Nights at Freddy's or whatever you want to do, and we can run with that.
Hey, you know what?
I sense a pitch.
Yeah, I think a couple of iPhones, we get Kevin Thompson out there in the Redwoods again. I think we can make this happen.
Right, yes. The Ewok Witch Project. I don't know.
Well, Ewok horror film.
Yeah.
Well, dude, it is always good to talk to you, and I'm glad you made it safely back from the Redwoods, and it sounds like you've got a packed summer, and there'll be all kinds of new Kyle Newman projects to talk about in the future. Is there anything that you want RFR listeners to know about your comings and goings over the next several months?
Well, I've got a couple books coming out this fall. So I've got the third Heroes Feast, our D&D cookbook series, which was turned into a cooking show. That comes out September 15th through Penguin Random House in conjunction with Wizards of the Coast. And that's a New York Times bestselling series, and this is maybe the best one yet. It explores the the food of the playable classes. Like, what does a wizard eat? What does a barbarian eat? Well, what does a druid eat? A ranger. Very cool. And also coming, which I can talk about now, November 10th is Star Trek: The Original Voyages. This is volume 1 of my 2-part Star Trek official history. So I'm doing this with Paramount and Penguin for the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. So this is, in my opinion, there's been nothing like it. There's been lots of different great Star Trek books, but there's been nothing that's taken you from point A to 2027 in terms of what Star Trek is as a phenomenon culturally, how it's been front-facing in the world. So I know this is a Star Wars podcast, but Star Trek had a big influence on Star Wars, on George Lucas. Star Trek returned to the big screen after Star Wars was a phenomenon. Star Wars helped get Star Trek on the big screen. They kind of spoken in concert with each other. JJ came from Star Trek to do Star Wars after, basically succeeding with a Star Trek reboot. There's a lot of stuff synonymous about them in parallel. And I collaborated with this guy, Jeffrey Bond, who'd written making of the art and visual effects of the motion picture. He did some James Horner bio and stuff like that. And, he came from a deeper Star Trek historian side. And I had to become like an overnight Star Trek, not overnight, years. Like I'm talking.
Wow. The director of Fanboys. Look at him, Kyle Newman. Trekkie.
You know what? I
Trekker.
love Star Trek. Star Trek was supposed to be in Fanboys properly represented, but 9 days out, Viacom, the whores at Viacom, pulled it. And that's why we went hard on them, because they kind of screwed us and wouldn't let us use Star Trek iconography and graphics and things like that. So then we had to go make our own version of Trek for that. So we went a little harder on Star Trek. I've always been a Star Trek fan. I will probably say, my favorite show of all time is probably The Next Generation. Like I could watch that 24/7 every day of the year, never get tired of it, just leave it on the background. That and Twilight Zone are probably two of the best shows ever made. Obviously,
don't let Mac give you that much guff, because I've said this before. The very first time I ever spent the night at Jimmy Mac's house, I was sleeping on a couch and I looked up and I saw multiple Next Generation DVD box sets on the shelf. And I was like, aha!
Hey, listen.
That was the first time I realized it was cool to bring up Trek in front of Mac.
Star Wars fans needed something to watch in the late 80s. There was no Star Wars at all. But so that was kind of a nice little placeholder there. Was the TNG.
87, he's writing in like Star Wars, Bantha track saying there'll be no more Star Wars. It was like, I cried. I was like, what?
Right. What were we supposed to do?
So I started watching Next Generation. I was 10 years old, 11 years old. Like, all right. I fell in love with
George
that
Lucas's downtime left us vulnerable to Trek. It's his own damn fault.
It is.
It really is.
So,
but Kyle, I just want to say, in the words
right.
of Hutch from Fanboys,
Get out of here, you Kirk-loving Spock suckers!
Okay, got that out of my system. Fine. But it didn't feel good after I've been exposed and outed as a TNG fan. But whatever.
The DVD box sets. But Kyle, is the book available right now for pre-order? I believe so, right?
Right now, it's on Amazon, all big places. It's a gorgeous coffee table scale book. Like I said, part 1 is this year. That explores everything from the original series, pre-original series, up through The Undiscovered Country. It's Kirk and crew, the original cast, all through the movies, and then volume 2 rewinds a few years and is like, how do we take this thing that's a phenomenon, the original, but can you redo that again? Can you get lightning in a bottle twice? And that's where The Next Generation finally came.
Yeah.
And it really became the prototype for everything Star Trek after that. It owes more to Next Generation than that. And then one other thing, so that comes out November 10th. That is absolutely amazing. It's like very much like what we did for D&D with Art and Arcana, the history of Dungeons and Dragons. That's like for Star Trek. And then there is a Fanboys reunion coming up this summer, early August at Rebel Scum Con. So Dan Fogler's helping put that together, and all the cast is coming back, and we're going to be down there. Ernie's going to be there, Fogler and Chris Marquette and Sam Huntington, and everybody's going down. So
that's going to be awesome. That's in Dallas? Is it?
I think it's Dallas. Yeah,
Dallas. Yeah, Rebel ScumCon. Yeah, you don't want to miss that. That's going to be fantastic. I was fortunate enough to see some digital pages from the book, the Star Trek book. It is awesome. There's never before seen photos in there. There's really, really cool stuff. And Kyle's narrative is so approachable and good. It's just it's awesome. It doesn't get too bogged down in the nerddom. It really puts it in cultural context throughout. And yeah, it's great. So if you're a Star Trek fan, you want to make sure you get that book. Kyle, it's always great.
Jordan Gene Roddenberry in the book. You know, they met once, and that picture's in there too.
That's right. They photographed by Dan Madsen, the only one to ever capture them.
Star Wars fan club extraordinaire.
Yeah, awesome. Dude, it's always great to talk to you. We love you. And thanks for hanging out with us tonight and giving us your thoughts. Our best to the family. And we will catch up with you again soon.
Thanks for having me on.
Listen. What'll it be, fellas? How much for the phaser gun? For the phaser gun? Sorry, Garfunkel. We don't hawk Trek here.
Well then, Slim, if you don't sell the Trek, then why do you have a phaser gun in the case?
We keep this one here to suss out Trekkie bitches like yourselves and tell them to get the hell off of our land. So get the hell off of our land. Get the hell off of our land! Get the hell out of here! Now! Get out of here, you Kirk-loving Spock suckers!
Rebel Force Radio.
Always great to catch up with Kyle and make sure that you are staying in touch with him on social media and find out when all of his books are coming out. And I know he was telling us a little off air, he's got some projects coming up. So you want to be making sure you are keeping up with the Newman. Before we wrap up this week's episode, Star Wars did suffer some pretty big losses over the last couple of weeks. And this is our moment to pay a little tribute to a couple. One we knew very well, one we didn't know. Certainly not personally, but she cast a large shadow over Star Wars for a long time and was really just, when it comes to Lucasfilm as a company, I don't know many that had more of an impact than Marcia Lucas. And we lost her. Luckily, we got to know her a little bit better through the incredible documentary, Star Wars. I always want to say Unearthed. Is it?
Icons Unearthed.
Icons Unearthed. That's what it is. Yeah. Icons Unearthed. And Brian Volkweis and the whole nacelle company over there, great folks. And wow, what a coup for Brian to be able to sit down for hours and hours and hours with Marcia Lucas, getting one of her only in-depth interviews, looking back on her time being married to George, building the company with him, and of course, editing and having such a huge influence on the story that we saw on the big screen.
Oh, she certainly did. And she really brought a family atmosphere to Lucasfilm in the time when she was there. It was really an embryonic time for that company before it grew into the massive studio that it is known as today. It's massive, but it still has that family appeal, I think, intact. And one of those family members, Mark Hamill, he shared on social media that he and his wife, Mary Lou, were deeply saddened by the loss of their lifelong friend, Marcia Lucas. Mark said she was not just a gifted, innovative artist, she also happened to be a genuinely nice person, smart, funny, and just plain fun to be around. Thankfully, her memory lives on, and we will never stop missing her. And she did seem like she was a fun person. I just get those vibes from her.
Oh, yeah.
Like Jason said, we really didn't get too much exposure to Marcia Lucas outside of the Icons Unearthed special from a couple of years ago. So I pulled some highlights from that, and I wanted to focus in on some of Marcia's contributions to the original Star Wars film. Most notably, she came in like a superstar and made suggestions when it came time to editing the Death Star trench battle sequence and all of the drama surrounding that and the intensity. A lot of that stuff was generated in the editing suite long after filming had finished, and it was created by Marcia Lucas. She talks a little bit about that here on Icons Unearthed.
In the original end battle, Luke makes the trench run twice.
Watch yourself. Increase speed full throttle. He
goes in once, uses a computer, and he misses a shot. And then he goes back again. And we all sat there and said, this is too much. Luke needs to make one run. And then Paul said, we need a time clock. And then I think I said, well, the Death Star should be moving to shoot up the Rebel base.
The Rebel base will be in firing range in 7 minutes.
I said, we've got the footage. We've got the footage on the Death Star warming up when they shoot Princess Leia's planet of Alderaan.
Using footage originally shot for entirely different scenes, Marcia conjured drama out of thin air.
There was a lot of voiceover stuff. There's a lot of countdown.
1 minute and closing.
But if you actually look in the film, nobody's doing the counting down.
30 seconds and closing.
And it added attention to the scene that was great.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a much different movie. There's another huge role that she played with Return of the Jedi, and going through some of the footage, some of the takes that were really seemingly oddly directed by Richard Marquand of Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. It seemed like, based on what Marcia was saying, Jim, in these interviews, that Marquand was really pushing Mark to give a darker, more angry version of Luke Skywalker, and Marcia just didn't use those takes.
Right.
So, and really, I don't know if she was channeling Mark or if there was back channel conversation or anything, but she really did keep the integrity of that character, thankfully.
I mean, she was really sort of guardian of that integrity in many ways, and she was the right person to do it, being there essentially at the conception of Star Wars. As George was coming up with those ideas in those early days, she was a soundboard for him, and he would bounce things off her all the time. It was a very collaborative scene that George Lucas sought as a filmmaker when he was young, and it was the 70s. And the idea of creating something like Skywalker Ranch as a filmmaker's retreat where filmmakers could come together and share ideas and work on each other's projects, that was the dream for George. He was very much part of the filmmaking community. He very much got off on that. And him and Marcia together opened a lot of doors in that community because she was so damn charming and George was so damn knowledgeable. The two of them became sort of an irresistible force. And Marcia Lucas, her influence on the original Star Wars film was pretty massive. Even when it came down to killing off the only actor in the film who actually had a name for himself in the movie business prior to Star Wars, and that's Sir Alec Guinness. Okay, well, you can also consider Peter Cushing, but let's be real here. Everyone knew who Sir Alec Guinness was. He was an Oscar winner. He Bridge of the River Kwai and all that stuff. Bridge on the River Kwai, I should say. And other movies. So it was Marcia's idea to kill him off, and she remembers that here on Icons Unearthed.
I said, but I really have this idea that I think could work because of the Force. May the Force be with you.
The Force was already with Marcia. Like a true Jedi, she understood its potential.
I said, what if Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan Kenobi? And Obi-Wan Kenobi disintegrates when they're escaping. George said, I like that idea.
What Marcia wanted to unlock was more than just a good death scene.
It would work because when Luke is listening to Obi-Wan when he's in the trench run, he hears Obi-Wan tell him,
use the Force, Luke.
And in the script, Obi-Wan was in the Rebel War Room talking to Luke. But I said he can still say all that stuff he needs to say to Luke.
Let go, Luke.
And George said, I like that idea. And so I sort of pride myself on killing Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Reach out with your feelings.
What does that mean?
Just, just a tremendous force of nature. And I'm so grateful for the Icons Unearthed documentary, because without it, we just would never have heard those stories. Certainly not from Marcia herself. And so we had Brian Volkweis, the producer and the director of that documentary, on RFR some time ago when that was first airing, and he talks about getting Marcia signed up for the doc. So that's also available in our archives, our voluminous archives here at Rebel Force Radio. So rest in peace, Marcia Lucas, also the mother of the one child that they share together with, she shares with George. I believe that's Amanda, right? Is Marcia's daughter. Yes. So, so definitely thinking about Amanda losing her mom, and she and George had a pretty big falling out with the divorce. So who knows? And if George is having moments of reflection, I'm sure he's a human being. So we all think about the Lucas family and the loss of Marcia Lucas. But that's not all. A couple of weeks before, we lost Tom Kane, the voice of Yoda, the voice of the narrator in Star Wars Clone Wars, the voice of Yularen in the Clone Wars, and just one of the most prolific voices on television. I mean, the narrator of the Oscars ceremony for many years, did the voice of JFK in Forrest Gump, was a voice double, and just one of the most insanely talented voice artists of our time. Scrubbing bubbles.
There it is. That was always sort of an inside joke with us and Tom.
Oh, yeah.
His voice work as the voice of the Scrubbing Bubbles commercial. Scrubbing Bubbles. And Tom was so cool to us. He was just such a great friend. I think he did his first ever Star Wars interview with us in Texas. And I got to know him well. We were car mates back and forth to the airport. This was back in 2008, right? Just a few months before the Clone Wars debuted on TV. And I had to sit down with Tom at that particular event. One time, me, him, and Logan were in Peoria, Illinois, staying at a hotel because Tom Kane and Daniel Logan were the grand marshals of the Sunflower Parade in Pekin, Illinois. So we stayed in the big city of Peoria, and boy, oh boy, there are stories from that weekend I can't share on these airwaves. No, sir. I'm not incriminating Tom in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, he did go to bed kind of early, leaving me and Logan up to our shenanigans.
Oh, can only imagine. Tom was also one of the best storytellers that I ever heard, and he could spin a yarn and about his adventures in Hollywood and meeting all kinds of people, and he just genuinely a great person, and he will definitely be missed. Unfortunately, he was silenced back in 2020 with the stroke.
That sounds about right. Yeah. And so he passed away. He was 64 years old. And we're really bummed. I do have to give him a shout out for his incredible work in the Smuggler series, the live audio dramas we performed, produced, written, performed by me, Kyle, and FJ. And then, of course, the cast of the Clone Wars. It was amazing. And I had picked out Tom, and I said, Tom does a great 3PO. People don't realize that Tom Kane does a really solid C-3PO, and he did, and he was great for us. He was on stage with a can, like a Coke can, talking into it to get the metallic 3PO sound. So I just love that production, and I have fond memories of the rehearsals with Tom, and he was always just a great guy to hang with, and we certainly will miss him. Passing positive vibes through the Force to Tom's family through this tough time. And I just want to play this particular highlight to take us out this week on Rebel Force Radio. It's one of my fondest moments with Tom Kane. We had the idea to have Tom do something he'd never done before, We knew his voice so well as the narrator on the Clone Wars, but had he ever narrated the opening crawl to Star Wars A New Hope, the 1977 original? Well, we had Tom do it for us on Rebel Force Radio, so we're going to leave you with that and fond memories of the late, great Tom Kane here on Rebel Force Radio. Well, now let me ask you a question, because your voice is the only voice that's heard in every single episode of the Clone Wars.
You know, and I did not realize that until, oh my gosh, Dave made some comment. Dave Filoni made a comment one time. They were giving us crew jackets for the Clone Wars at the end of season 6, and they had little metal bars on the, up here to represent how many seasons you had done. And I didn't think any of them. And he goes, well, yeah, not only do you have one for every season, he goes, we should have like a special platinum one for you. And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, you're the only one that's been in every episode. And I went, well, no, I haven't been in every, because I keep forgetting about the narrator.
The narrator. He's at the beginning of every episode.
Right. And I, when I think of a character, I think of a character, an on-camera animated character. If it's just a voice, for some reason that had never occurred to me that wasn't a character. But
the narrator. So where do you
ask me to sign things? I've had people ask me to sign something as the narrator, and I've actually thought about just having just some 8x10s of, like, I don't know, just pick any random section of a crawl.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
sign that.
You're the crawl, and I'm not kidding you when I say that since the Clone Wars, when I'm watching a Star Wars feature with the crawl, I swear to God, I hear your voice in my head when that crawl is going on.
I have had many people say that now. That they said even I had a guy that's my age that is now watching these things with his grandsons, and he said, he was taking them back and watching the movies, and one of them looked up and said, where's the guy talking?
It is a dark time for the rebellion.
He goes, oh, well, they don't do that in the movies. And the kid was like, well, that's really weird. How do you know what's going on? And I went, well, there you go. George was right. The kids need the voice.
That's right. That's right. We had Ashley Eckstein on the show a couple weeks ago, and she was talking about her little golden book that she had written for Ahsoka. It's about Ahsoka. And I said, it'd be great if you would just, we were talking about reading it to my kids. And back, even better would be if you read it to my kids. So now I'm thinking that you need to read the opening crawl to all the Star Wars films when we're sitting around and watching those.
You know what? That's an interesting idea. The only problem with it is they move so slow. It would be like Empire at War as the Jedi something moves across the universe. The evil Emperor Palpatine is building the third Death Star, and
there'd be time saying, "Speed it up."
Yeah,
let's go. Have you? So you've never actually?
You just need to get this video, speed it up 50%, and I'll narrate it. There we go.
Perfect.
Have you ever actually narrated it on a microphone before?
Oh, the actual movies? No, I never have. I probably
just the crawl.
I should do that for fun, just to see what it looks like. But,
well, let's do it now. I mean,
you got to crawl.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna email you the copy here, and then you're gonna.
You just happen to have the crawl from a movie.
Of course. Well, I memorized.
Don't leave home without
a long time ago, and I typed it for you. And its subject line is crawl, and send. Just sent it to you. I'm putting you. We're gonna put you on the spot. So.
Well, wait. How do I get that?
This is a cold read.
Did you email it to me? How did you send it to me?
I sent it to your email.
Hold on. Let me look. Let me just go to my email. Hold on a second.
While Tom's doing that, we'll switch to a glamour shot of Tom and his Clone Wars alter ego, Jedi Master Yoda here.
Oh my gosh, you really do.
Yeah.
Oh, this is okay. It is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. During the battle, Rebel spies managed to steal secret plans for the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. Pursued by the Empire's sinister agents, Princess Leia races home aboard her starship, custodian of the stolen plans that can save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy. Bum, bum, bum.
Oh.
That was
It never sounded better. Never sounded better.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
too funny.
That's
the first time that is actually the first time in my life I've read that. That's pretty good.
Chewie, get us out of here!
Who were those young guys in that video?
Oh God. How about it?
Baby faces. Oh my goodness. Oh, that was awesome. Great memories, and rest in peace, Tom Kane. Your voice is no longer silenced. All right, so for more Rebel Force Radio, please check us out over on Patreon, patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Weekly full show video. That's right, the podcast you're listening to right now in your ear holes. You could be watching with your eye holes. So make sure you check that out. Exclusive podcast you can't get anywhere else. And the best, and I mean the best community of Star Wars fans you will ever find anywhere collected can be found over on Patreon for Rebel Force Radio. You can also watch us on YouTube. We got a lot of interview highlights, show highlights, all the after shows that we've done. Check it out over on YouTube. Please follow us on our socials, on Instagram, on X, on Facebook. We're over in all those places. And the official website for all things and everything, RFR, rebelforceradio.com. So please keep listening to this podcast. Please keep recommending it to the Star Wars fans, friends in your life. And if your podcaster or podcatcher of choice allows you to do so, we'd love to have you subscribe. We'd also love to have you review. Just one small, simple rule, please.
Make them good.
That's it for us here this week on RFR. We will see you next week for more Star Wars conversation and so much more. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.
I sort of pride myself on killing Obi-Wan Kenobi.